Who is the greatest parkour athlete of all time? The GOAT. Who is the GOAT of parkour? It's really ineffable. Like most sports, it's hard to nail down specifically who is the greatest of all time. But it recently came up in the Stora podcast and they named a bunch of athletes.
People that would be on our GOAT list: David Bell, Daniel Ilabaca, Oleg Vorslav, Phil Doyle, Domtomato, maybe?
I feel like he's entering stage. Yeah.
GOAT from the
like
Mount.
In 5 years' time, he will definitely be on that list. For sure.
Just to be mentioned in that name of incredible athletes who were so influential for me growing up is really humbling, and I feel validated. But I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about the other athletes who I think are the greatest and really just showcase who they were and what they're about. And we're going to start with the creator, the god, the man we all aspire to be, David Bell. He is technically the creator of the sport, and he was an absolute machine and still is to this day, practicing at a very high level of intensity. Speed Airman. This is a video of his that's from, I believe, shot in the late 90s, early 2000s. And yeah, he was so mentally strong. He could do challenges that people hadn't ever tried before and just had this tenacity to the way he moved. It's really animalistic, and I think he took a lot of inspiration from anime characters like Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, just watching him move, he's so strong. There's actually an urban legend about the spot Dum Du Lac that one time after he experienced a very personal tragedy, he was dropping from the top of the Dum Du Lac all the way down to the center little hub that you saw him jumping just before. So he's jumping from the top to this hub that he's landing on now, and then to the floor on repeat. So that's like a 5.5 meter drop into a 6 meter drop onto pebbles. Yeah, if that's true, the level of physicality required, I don't care about the emotional state as much. Well, I do care about his emotional state, but I don't care about the emotional state when it comes to the incredibleness of him achieving that feat. It's an urban legend. I can't confirm or deny if it is actually true. Oh, the Tic Tacs, man. He really paved the way for so many athletes, and I mean all of us really, him and his friends. I love that. I mean, back in the day, we just had a tendency that if you could make the jump, do it with like running air forms, because that's kind of the thing you would see with Jackie Chan in the films, and just seeing David Bell do it now, which would be considered cheesy, is kind of funny. But yeah, this set of movements coming up, 360 lock arm grab, and the tic tac off the rail clear into a 3-4 meter drop. Speed Air Man. Oh. Yeah, the man is for sure stapled as one of the greatest of all time, but he's also the pioneer of the sport. One of the athletes that I think went underrated during this time is someone who was in a movie with David Bell. He didn't come from a parkour background as much as stunts and gymnastics, but I personally think that Raphaeli is one of the GOATs of parkour of all time. He was doing things light years ahead of the free running game. People talk about flip precisions and how they came about in like 2010, 2000 and whenever. They didn't. He was doing like flip precisions to little blocks, stairs, all sorts of different stuff. He just had this awareness and outdoor sendability that was remarkable. And the form in which he did everything was like perfect, textbook. Something like you see with like Tim Champion or Ed Scott, just this unreal awareness for their body. I love this as well. Boom. You don't see Barani half roll out, or like the way that it was done is just, yeah, it's still 1 in a million. Still 1 in a million to this day. And sorry, the clip's at 240p, but that is all the video I could get of this man doing his incredible things. But I think because he came from a different background, the parkour community didn't embrace him as one of the GOATs, or wouldn't consider him to be textbook one of the parkour greatest of all time. But I think he's influenced many people like Damian Walters, and even if you look at his style, it's very flip heavy, which is similar to people who are considered some of the greats now. It translates to an impact or a wider vision that he had for parkour. And there's something so timeless about quick flick flacks and tumbling. But just the landings and the pop, everything's done standing upright. There's no hunch, there's no yeah, missteps. He's so good. And like the style is rudimentary. The back to front there. Oh, that is just so nice, the way he lands completely upright. That era was so influential for so many athletes. In the next generation, there is one athlete, the GOAT of GOATs. I think, inarguably, if you started parkour in the early 2000s, this man is considered to be the GOAT, and that is Daniel Ilabaca. He is the Jesus of parkour. He is our Holy Father. He just understood movement on a fundamental level like we'd never seen before. He was the inventor of the congainer here that you see. And he could just physically achieve things at a higher consistency and level and variety than any other athlete at the time. I know that the Story guys mentioned Ben Jenks, they mentioned Philly D. And I agree that these are some of the greats, but to be in the era of the greatest of all time, they really didn't feel like they stepped up in the same overarching sense. Danny had come from a little bit longer training background, only a couple of years, but he always seemed to be the one that was the pinnacle. Phil and Jenks were almost like his disciples in a way, if we want to put it back to the parkour Jesus adage. And yet, the lightness and the touch and the style with all of his movements. I personally took so much influence from Danny. I think I really wanted to be him all the way down to the hairstyle that I've now chosen to live my adult life with. He really did size and capacity things that I hadn't seen before. Like jumping to a sand pile was just something I'd never thought about using as a way to elevate my training. And he really could do it all. He was in MTV's Ultimate Parkour Challenge with Ben Jenks, and it really looked like, though Jenks deserved the win, Danny took his foot off the accelerator because he was someone who never liked the Hollywood machine. He didn't want to be a famous free runner. He loved movement and he wanted to work with the scene, and I think every time he did work in the professional industry, it kind of sucked a bit of his soul from him. It felt like every time we go to a jam, he would start moving and everyone would just stop and watch. And I love that. I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm the center of attention. But I think for someone who's more humble and comes from more of a modest upbringing like Danny, he didn't enjoy that. He wanted to be a part of the community and part of everyone. And I think in a way, we almost, as a community, transcended Danny from parkour by just idolizing him so much. And sometimes you just want to be treated like a person out there. You just want to be one of the guys. I think I find it really easy to stay relatable to the younger athletes and enjoy parkour on a more moderate level because I just don't worry if people are watching or not. It's a skill you have to learn though when that becomes prevalent in your training. I think after that, Danny reigned supreme for 2007 to 2011, 2012. He was untouchable, and that's why to have that GOAT status for such a long time is why he's the GOAT of GOATs. The greatest of all time, as we say. But it took years and years for someone else to kind of pave out such an incredible notoriety, awareness, and forward-thinkingness for movement and the scene. And I personally think the next GOAT on the list is actually Fosy Pedro Gomez from Galicia in Spain, España. He personified flow. There's no other athlete that you put in the same bracket as flow like you do Fosy. His impact on so many people will still resonate through training today. And I love this video in particular. On that note, I don't think the videos really encapsulate how great these people were. They're kind of just giving you context to who they were and how they moved. And if you really take into account what they were doing in the era that they were doing, it really is just ahead of its time. There's just no pauses. There's no, it's so light as well. 1, 2, 1, 2. His pacing and his steps and the way he can accelerate and decelerate on cue where it's required for the run just really is unmatched. I mean, we've seen few athletes who can really step to that level of flow in general, but nobody makes it look like Fosy does. Oh, and this was for a Red Bull run, and seeing him do double side to double cork and a little trick out is just, it's not what you would commonly see him do. So to see him broaden his skill set and really flex on those moves in one line is just pinnacle Fosy. He could just do it all. Little knee slide. Yeah, making a knee slide look cool is really hard too, and he just smashes it, absolutely smashes it. Iconic line, boom, boom, boom. I've actually gone to that spot and tried that very line, the double Kong Webster over, and mate, it is so much more difficult than he makes it look. He makes it look like breathing, but it's the spacing is really awkward, and the double Kong to begin is way bigger than it looks in the video. And we're finished with manpower front. Fosy was the second person ever to front flip manpower, and at the time I was a little bit jealous because I felt like skill-wise I could do it, but I was on the other side of the world. But within months, I also did the front flip, and it was nice to have that bond and that unity when I finally met Fosy, like something we'd both done that we could goss over and talk about parkour. I actually think that there's a lot of other athletes skill-wise that really belong in the GOAT bracket, but there's so much more that goes into being one of the greatest, in my opinion. It's about the impact you have on the scene, the way you innovate and cultivate a style or a faction of movement, and just the general reputation and level of skill that you possess puts you there. For example, I think Bob Reese is one of the greatest of all time. Skill number of, I'm saying this badly, but the number of skills that Bob Reese possesses is unmatched. But I don't think he has made enough of an impact in the global community to get into that bracket. Does that make sense? I'm probably butchering it, but you know, I'm just wanting to give you guys context as to why more people are not named and why I'm keeping this list quite select. I would say that I took the torch from Fosy for a couple of months there, but then the younger generation, by the time I got to being very great, they're also really great. And this leads me to the current era greatest of all time, who I consider to be revolutionary, and a lot of people have said over the past few years is the GOAT. I would consider him, years ago, he was the greatest of all time in his gym. But now I would say he is definitely one of the GOATs, period. Oh, by the way, if you're enjoying any of these videos about parkour, I'd love for you to subscribe because I'm really, really far away from 1 million. I still think he has so much more to do with parkour and free running, and he will elevate the scene, but that is Elis Torhall. He's just a freak, man. We've never seen anyone of this capacity in that overarching sense. His, just like trick capacity, and then also competition status, the consistency in which he can perform, and the kind of transformation he's gone through from being this gym kid with an incredible amount of skill to bringing it all outside. A lot of athletes can't make that translation, and the fact that he has just staples him as one of the greats, in my opinion. And I think there's so much more you're going to see from Elis, but he is by far the current GOAT, in my opinion. There's only one man that I think can step to him, and it will be something for us to keep our eyes on as a scene over the next few years. And that man is Travis Verky. Because Verky has the street style and the authentic kind of old school flavor that really resonates with a wider audience, not in the niche of parkour per se, but his mentality, his physicality really just shines through and has been in the last couple of years. Like, look at this double Kong here in the rain, or this Kong pre here in the rain. Like, he hadn't been training for months. He'd just come back from an ankle injury, and he just smashes out these world-class challenges. And then when I was speaking to him, wasn't happy, was like, I need to do more, I'm not happy with where my level is, blah, 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 which is a clear sign of someone who's thinking about achieving their best status. And that's what really stands out to me about all of these athletes, is the hunger, the want or the yearn to be great or to be successful or to do something more than the norm. And yeah, when I train or have trained with any of these athletes, it's been clear to me that these are greatness. They possess greatness, and it's intoxicating to be around. It's intoxicating to watch. I get excited just watching them here on video, even though I've seen a lot of these clips before. It still gets me welled up, excited. I love it. Yeah, this probably is like showing you how much of a nerd I really am about parkour, and how much, like, I haven't really even been reacting to the videos. I've just been gushing about my favorite athletes of all time and why you should care about them. And I noticed that there isn't any Americans on the list, but that's not to say that America hasn't got its own GOAT. And this man is just, he's a professor, he's a surgeon of movement. He's so precise and has been since like 5-6 years of training. And that man is the great late, well, no, not late, that's terrible to say, the great Nate Weston. USA GOAT of all time. Just even, that just shows you, he has so much control. He was doing the flip precisions to rails and all other sorts of really intricate, difficult movements years before they were common exchange, common currency in parkour. They just, to me, he's been so good for so long. I don't even know how to go on and on about Nate, because there's just been so many things that he's done that really radiate to the global community, and really, he's also just a lovely, lovely person. And I think that is a big thing in parkour. If in a social community where judging is subjective, personality carries weight. You have to be a nice human to succeed, and we often see anyone who is a jerk who comes into parkour just get dejected from the scene. They don't last, because if you're not in it for the movement and the culture and the sport, then you're really gonna find yourself not getting anything back from parkour. It's not a reward-based system on anything material. It's very arbitrary. And yeah, just I can't get enough of watching Nate move. It's always something new, something exciting. And this last run here where he's coming down the cheat gainer across onto the bus stop is, yeah, a beautiful showcase of skill and movement across the board. And finally, I want to talk about who I consider to be the greatest female athlete of parkour of all time, Alexandra Shevchenko. Well, Sheva I absolutely butchered her name. She's gonna kill me for that. Sheva was a originally high-level gymnast, but she made her transition to parkour and really made a staple in free running that is next to none. This video of hers, Venice to Vegas, it's just the coolest mix I've seen of kind of gymnast style, or a bit more like flexibility and creativity added into the movement. And Sheva was also pinnacle in creating some of your favorite athletes like Shade, Pasha, Archie. I would say that their relationship only strengthened the ability, skill, and drive of the athletes. She is an incredible partner and coach, and has achieved so much physically that it's hard to even fathom how good she is at parkour. And she's so humble as well, and wouldn't go on and on about it, but she's beaten me in many competitions. Me and her have competed against each other, and without any gender split, she's beat me hands down. Points across the board, because she's that good. And she never made free running feel like me that there was any separation of gender. She was just in it the same way that we're all in it, to do movement, to elevate. And I think she gave an example for a lot of younger female athletes who wanted to feel cool and feel, still effeminate while doing parkour. Oh, the split backflip, man. Oh, it's so cool. It took me like 7 or 8 years to even try it after seeing that, because it's just so innovative. And I think that again speaks to why I think she's one of the greatest of all time. It is about how ahead of the time and pinnacle they were as an athlete during their era. So now that I've gushed to you about parkour athletes for however long this has been, I want you to watch this next video about parkour. Tell me who you think the greatest of all time is in the comments below. And of course, say hi to your mum for me.